Hello, this is Blair Stanislao with the Happy Lion Center. Welcome to our podcast, Mystical and Infamous, where we have playful and easy conversations about anything mystical, getting to the heart of all things strange and weird. Join us in a bit of magical tomfoolery, spreading the alchemy of love and light. And now, we invite you to enjoy the show. We were talking about, somebody in our group had asked, what was the need for doing the practice of creating an energetic barrier or protective layer or encompassing yourself in positive energy as you do these meditative, energy kind of work? And the person's question was kind of interesting because it plays on the ideas, which is, I'm going to say it's fact. I've seen it repeatedly, but the ideas behind, where you put your thoughts, that's what grows, right? So if you have a fear, let's say people will use the term a demon or a negative energy or an entity or something like that. If you have a fear of that, just that energy of the fear is putting energy towards that thing, right? And there was a suggestion in the group about, let's take that and put it into the physical form. We were just talking about body, connecting with your body, right? So we're living in this 3D world, and there's this idea in our culture about we go to a doctor to get fixed. We go to a doctor so they can find what's wrong with us. And another person in the group said, you have to, and it was actually Janelle. So she's much older, much more experienced at all of this, right? And she said, no. Basically, it's not that you don't want to even think about it. You really don't even want to entertain this 3D vision of, I need to go to a doctor to find it. I need to know what it is that needs to be fixed. I need to know all about it. She's saying that even that puts energy towards that whatever the thing is that you don't like, the whole experience puts energy towards that. So the question was, if that kind of stuff puts the energy towards, let's say, a health condition you don't want, and you're trying to direct the energy elsewhere, then why do we need to do a protection? Because we're establishing our belief in this negative entity, demon, whatever you want to call it, by doing the protection. So we had a conversation. Let's continue talking about that.
Okay. And here's the very most basic thing that I would say is there's a lot of interference. There are entities around us that are not for our highest good. That's one of the things I love about Reiki, is it is always for our highest good. It does not ever intend any harm or hurt in any way, shape, or form. Now, with that being said, that Reiki isn't the only energy or vibration out there. There are many, many, many forms. There are forms that are only negative, and they may operate at a real low level or a medium level or a real high level. And when you get into those areas, you kind of get a little spooky. But there's also all of this area that's part of this web of life, and not just life here, but life in the beyond what I call the veil. And it can be very positive at a very low level, it can be very positive at a medium level, it can be very positive at a high level. And we all have all of that around us all the time. It passes through us. It isn't just on the outside of us like a grid. It is within us. And it's part of our soul. It's part of our enculturation. It's part of our belief system. It encompasses what we call life. And each one of us experiences and believes in it differently. And that too is based on whatever our past is or whatever we've brought with us that has been entertained or lived in another lifetime. And in those lifetimes, who knows what those entities could be or what they have done. whether they be positive or negative. And I think it's very important to be sure that we place the protection around us. I never, never, never enter a session without putting a holy healing light around the person, around me, and all of their things, because strange things can happen if there is a particular negative energy around that person or within their life, or that perhaps just pesters them from time to time. And that may just want to cause a flat tire just because it's entertaining. It may cause a backfire in the vehicle. It could cause harm in the home or with one's children if it's really violent. And so we need to put the protection around us. And that isn't about focusing on that negative energy. You don't think about it.
The intention is to focus on the positive energy.
Absolutely. And ask for that protection. We all have protectors. And some of them are on this side and some are on the other side of the veil. And those protectors are the ones who come to our aid. Now, that doesn't mean they fix us. That doesn't mean they enter our life and make things their way. But we ask for help, we get it. We can be assured of it. And so we don't have to think on it anymore. We don't have to dwell on it. We know they will help us. In Catholicism, we call them saints. In some of the mindfulness, we call them ascended masters or archangels. The angels are very much a part of my Catholic tradition. And so we have all of these aids that are very, very positive. We also know we have all that negativity out there. Don't have to focus on it. Don't have to talk about it. Don't have to entertain it because it likes that.
Mm-hmm. Right. It grows. It's the same principle. Yeah.
Actually, that will grow like a bacteria.
Mm-hmm.
Feed it just a little bit of sugar and it will go crazy because the attention is what it's seeking. Now, some of that's in the other realm. And William Rand writes about it. Boy, that's hard to say. William Rand writes about it as far as the different consciousness and what happens in those consciousnesses.
If you don't mind, I'm going to pull out a couple of things that I think will help our listeners to even more solidly grasp what we're talking about here. So you had mentioned, we're a web. We are the web. The web is inside of us of all of these different kinds of energies, good, bad, whatever you want to call them. But the first thing that came to my mind when you started describing that was that sounds a lot like the thought narration that goes on in our heads. 1 minute you can have 3 positive, uplifting thoughts about a particular thing. And then, just as easily shift right into the negative thoughts. And so as energy workers, we're taught to be very cognizant of what we're thinking, noticing when it shifts. Why did it shift? Being cognizant of focusing the energy inwards and trying to figure out how do I improve myself to stay on track more, meaning keep the focus where it's meant to go. So I think that a good illustration it's not a concrete way, but it's a thought kind of way in terms of how do you think about how do these ideas they're just energies, right? Like they're just things that sometimes we can feel, sometimes we can see, sometimes we hear, all different kinds of things. But it's just a fluctuation or a change in that energy, and it can be illustrated as it comes out in thoughts in your mind.
Yes.
And then the other thing I just wanted to add here, I know that you and I have talked about this in depth before, but I wanted to share this with the group. Yes, I do Reiki, and I've been doing it for a while, but I would say I'm relatively new at this. I mean, if I'm really being honest, I think some people do Reiki without even knowing it or having any instruction, right? So maybe I did that, but of course it's not very refined when I was younger, but I haven't been too long in the tradition of knowing the formal practices of doing the Reiki. And earlier on in my practice, and I can't say I haven't ever done it since then, but every time that I've ever had I would say an accurate description is a negative experience as a practitioner with the Reiki is the times that I was lazy and did not do the protection.
Mm-hmm.
And it was very, sometimes it comes out physically, sometimes it comes out as a feeling. Like one time I just very early on, this was like almost right after I took my first class. I knew this person, and generally speaking, we have a good relationship. And this person was into Reiki, and he was aware of it. He wasn't trained in it, but he was aware of it and he appreciated it. And so, I was like, I need to practice on somebody. And of course, he says, you can practice on me. And so we didn't actually get on the phone or anything. We just agreed to do it at a certain time on a certain day. And so I did. I sat down and I was doing the energy, and it was fine. It was almost like I was having in a way, it was almost like I was having a conversation with him. But I got down to I think it was the solar plexus or somewhere. I started at the top and went down, and somewhere around the solar plexus or maybe the sacral plexus, the energy shifted. And I don't even today have the words to describe what it was other than, ugh. And so much so that it was almost like my mind came in and started questioning things and jostling up my energy, kind of fragmenting it. And anyways, I just quit. I was new at it, and I was like, nope, I don't want that. I'm not doing that. And I talked to other, some of my teachers later, and that was the same thing. I said, did you do the protection? Did you do your grounding? And I was like, no, I didn't do that. Okay. Yeah. Later, it came out as a migraine. Somebody spontaneously, unexpectedly, I wasn't expecting to do Reiki, requested a Reiki session. And this person was actually a client of mine who was dealing with some heavy stuff. And I don't have any I don't feel it's on the part of any of the people I was working with. It just was a circumstance. He did have a lot of stuff he was working through that was difficult. We'll say that. And I started to get a migraine, and I've had migraines since I was about 11, but they're very clear. I know if I'm getting a migraine because I get the auras. And I started to get the aura, and I thought, okay, I really don't need to have this aura because I'm about to have to do a hypnosis, and that's 2 hours. And, anyways, I tried to ignore it. It was a very different experience in that the aura normally, if I closed my eyes, it would go away. But this time when I closed my eyes doing the Reiki, I would see the aura really obnoxious. And it did, in fact, turn into a headache. I usually have about 15 minutes of the aura that I can either make a huge shift in what I'm doing, and sometimes I don't get it. I didn't do that because I still need to continue the session, and I got a migraine. So I had to do a hypnosis session while I had a migraine because I didn't do the grounding, because I didn't do that protection. And it wasn't fully intentional or anything like that. It just, if you're not attending to where your energy and your focus is going, I think what you're talking about oftentimes comes in. I think like you said, like a bacteria, you just give it just a tiny bit, and it could just be, oh, I noticed this. Yes. Oh, I'm not going to pay attention to that. You focus over to the other side, and then you're kind of still thinking, well, what about this other thing that was weird? Should I go back to that? So even just that much of it, I think, feeds it, like you're talking about.
The energies aren't always angelic or human. Sometimes those energies are simply constructs, ideas, yes, opinions, judgments that are just riding around out there in this energy world that we actually move and have our own being within. And we have all of these things. They're just waiting for an opening. And when they get an opening, they just go, wow, yeah, zoom in. And they fly in, and we haven't protected ourselves or our client. And then all sorts of strange things happen.
They do. They really do. And it is not fictitious. I can say even on the very physical plane, things happen differently. And I think one of the things that I love about Reiki, for the listeners who are not familiar with it, part of the phrasing is that it does no harm, right?
Absolutely. No harm.
So but part of the practice is to kind of verbalize that and set the intentions that way. And the way that the practice is It is a very open and loving, positively directed focus. So instead of focusing on necessarily, I mean, it's been you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it's been my experience that it's more of a focusing on the embracing of the positive energy that is the person and meaning the person you're working on, and also the practitioner or the space that you're in, right? You're focused on the positivity of that. And just by that nature, as you're calling in all of the guides or whatever that are there to help, again, you say it's to help with our best interest in mind. And so that's not necessarily focusing on the negative, but it's still a protective practice.
Definitely a protective practice. My master told me, and I believe has said in class, that she always does this in every room. She does it wherever she is, in her car, in her home, in her business, around herself. And one of the things that's very important for the practitioner, long before we ever have a client, is that we practice self-Reiki. And by doing that, we grow in an awareness of what it really means. And it is expressed or manifested in each of us differently. But the bottom line to the thing is our concept of love. Yeah. And love that is much greater than ourselves, and one that and an area that we can draw on and actually become, because we need to become Reiki, which is to become love. And when we do become love, then those negativities aren't serving us. And they want to, if there's a hole, they'll come in. Usually, if there's an area that is not healed, might be a trauma from this life or another. It can be a worry we've carried all of our life, which is a low vibration that we carry. And that the energies then that are seeking that level or want to be a little more important, they'll come in and they're welcomed there, and they usually affect our health, our physical health. And that's where a lot of things get manifested, and we go, what the heck happened? Well, when I referred to this before, but when I was diagnosed with cancer last year, the first thing I did was take that to that self-Reiki and that self-prayer time. And I spent time alone. I wouldn't talk to anyone about it, because I have found that if I don't talk about something for at least 24 to 48 hours, it will either resolve itself, or it will be something I really do need to take to someone to talk about. When I was younger, I used to go to everybody and tell them the drama. I enjoyed it. I didn't mean to enjoy it, but it was what I knew to do. And so I'd tell this one, and then I would tell this one. And did you know that.
Well, I think that's a drive for, I have teenagers, so I know what you're talking about personally right now. I think it's a need to release energy, because it's like it comes in, it doesn't feel right. So you need to get it out. And talking is one of those ways that's socially acceptable. And, it is a way of releasing, but as we grow, we learn how to release it without doing that, because that can oftentimes give negative effects as well. That can be sometimes even worse than the actual experience, not always, but they can compound whatever the situation is.
I think almost always they do. Yeah. And the reason I say that is when we speak it, it's a thought. It lasts forever. Mm-hmm. And when we set that thought out there, and we set it, and we set it, and we set it, then it sets in us, because we hear it first. It goes out of our mouth and into our ears. And when we do that, then it causes us harm. That's why I waited a couple of days before I talked to anybody about it. I wanted to know what I felt. I wanted to know what I thought, because that was scary information. Mm-hmm. And, I wasn't sure where I was at with it. Where's this thing going to go? What am I going to do about it? How should I proceed? And all I know is my body had said to me in my writing, you're getting old. And you're not, but I am, my body. Oh. She said, I'm getting old and I need some help here. And by the time this diagnosis comes, I have to look at, oh, she needs some help. I just not ever, I mean, other than an annual doctor appointment and a couple of real light prescriptions, I don't have anything. And so when that came about, I had to look at, what is it she's saying? Well, the cells just don't regenerate as fast or as clear and as easy as they once did. And I have this strong body that's just kept up with me. But she was basically saying, I will stay here and you will go on. And when I lay down, I might have to lay down sooner than you want to leave. So you might as well help me, because then we both can work together. So as I worked through, what was it that created this issue, this physical issue in my body? What did I keep open that allowed something negative to enter me and to form and develop within me? I mean, that I basically, through not dealing with three big issues, I ended up with this encapsulated problem. And my body had done all that she could do, which was surround it and close it off. But it was like, now you better take care of this, which meant I better take care of some emotions. I had let it go too long. And so I needed intervention. But I needed to do my personal work, which was emotional work. And it had to do with memories. So that comes back to love. I have to do the love. And you don't always want to, because some of those memories are attached to people that have really ticked you off and you're resenting them. And that resentment over time causes grave, grave harm. So how do you get rid of that? Well, then I had to practice. I love you. I love you. I love you. I forgive you. I forgive you. I forgive you. I love you. I love you. I love you. It's okay not to feel it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not okay to talk about it, as far as doing the negative, gossipy, look what happened to me, poor me thing. It's not good.
Yeah. It's interesting. I just want to add this in here because, sometimes when we learn certain things, especially if we take them to a career, they kind of become part of who we are. And so, I have a couple of things that I do. And one of those things, well, let me preface this with the fact that I am a Virgo ascendant, and I heard one time and I thought, isn't that the truth? That wherever Virgo is in your chart, you have karma, right? So if Virgo is my ascendant, I have karma with my body. Okay. This is why Virgo ascendant people oftentimes will have digestive issues, which I have had almost all of my life, really all of my life. Let's not pretend. And having to focus on that for so long, you get very aware, you get keenly aware, a lot of people would consider it hypersensitive, but to me, it's more like I'm constantly trying to figure out what it is that's happening so that I know how to make it better for my body, good or bad. Anyhow, I go into, so anyways, that's been a focus of mine my whole life, regardless of what job I do. And I get into this hypnosis stuff with Dolores Cannon's method, and her daughter has a book, and she had a little course that I took too. It's called Soul Speak. And this is good. I recommend it to everybody, honestly. And so through all of this work, whatever method you want to talk about, my overall conclusion is reality is not as important as how we feel about what's going on. Right? Okay. Yeah. So, and it's exactly what you're talking about there. If the energy comes in, like, for example, I have a sibling who I remember being young with her. She was older than me, young with her. And she at one point recounted this experience that we both had. And I was there and I was old enough to remember it. And I still remember it now. And she recounted this experience, and it was this horribly atrocious experience. Like, I can't believe that she had that perspective in the same room with me at the same time, because I'm thinking that is not what happened. But everybody's perspective is different from any given situation, right? So it really doesn't even matter what it is that happened. It's more about what are you doing with it afterwards and how do you feel about it? So this Soul Speak book, of course, continues on that. That's what they've learned through their all of their hypnosis experiences is essentially that. And I have too. But what they've learned, and the key thing is that any ailment we have, any misalignment, any dis-ease we have is because we're not listening enough to what our higher self is saying to us in whatever method it comes through. And so she's written this whole book. She's looked at all the body parts. She kind of helps you try to start to navigate through all of that. And do you know that cancer is always about anger?
Yeah.
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 And a lot of times that's really hard for people to hear. But you just described exactly what they're saying. You didn't deal with some things that were bothering you and you held on to it. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Not nice. Not nice.
It's not easy work.
No, it's hard work. And for a long time, it was coming back and coming back. And this was after I'd had double mastectomy and all of that, and began seeing the oncologist. Months of work. But, it didn't grow overnight.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
It took a while for that to develop. And I had a couple of other experiences before the final push.
Yeah, sure.
I feel really grateful that it was when it was, because I could have left it. I could have. You know how denial is.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yes, yes.
But I followed through with an annual, and oh my goodness, here it happened.
Yeah.
And I thought, yeah, that's what you get for not paying attention. And I knew what the issues were. I knew them. I just kept working and pushing past it because that's my MO.
Well, I want to just say here, especially coming through the lens of astrology, we all avoid certain things. Mm-hmm. And we avoid them because that's the lesson that we came here, meaning if we're talking about one thing, right? We're not talking about one thing. It's a bunch of things. But we avoid the things that we don't want to do. We don't want to do them specifically because that is what we're meant to essentially overcome or work through or whatever you want to call it. So it's not that wanting to avoid it is a bad thing at all, right? It's just human nature. This is part of the lesson. But if you don't deal with it, then that's when those things, you're not learning the lesson. That's essentially what it is. And
somehow or another, you're either going to learn it here,
yes,
or on the other side,
or come back. Yeah.
It's going to be in front and center over and over and over.
Yeah,
it just is. Yeah, and I just I have a lifetime of them, of these things, and I this one caught me off guard. It really did. The others, there was suffering with them. There always is, but they I finally could find a way through. This one was just kind of like, hello. And I'm not sorry I've had the lesson. Yeah. And I keep working on those three. They're big issues. The what do you say? The intensity of them isn't there. Mm-hmm. I'm able to look at them much more dispassionately, but I'm still looking at them because I'm not sure. A lot of times when we go to work on something, especially the emotional, it has so many facets that we think, well, I already dealt with that. Well, I dealt with that. That's over. No. It might have some sides to it you haven't gotten to. It just was the beginning.
Yeah, you've got a big knot, whether it be in a muscle or anywhere else, right? You have the outer layers. It's kind of like defrosting meat or anything that's frozen. It's like on the outside, it's going to soften and then it can kind of come away. And then it winds up getting smaller, but you do have to go until it completely dissolves. And I think you can feel that energetically. If the easiest way I would describe it is if you feel really irritated or bothered by somebody, And when you learn to do this work, okay, it's easier when you've got people who are just like acquaintances. It's much harder when you've got like, family members or spouses or anything like that, or children. If an acquaintance comes in and causes you to have these highly emotional responses, or you're really mad about something, or, it's just something you can't let go. And then you learn to turn towards yourself and say, first off, you have to realize I'm really irritated, right? Or I'm really bothered, or I'm angry, or I'm upset, or whatever. And then you have to say, okay, this is about me. What am I supposed to get from this? Why am I upset? Why does this even matter? Because Joe Blow over there doesn't care.
No,
Joe Blow wouldn't even care if they were me in this situation. So you just keep asking yourself that question. And when you get better at it and you really get the answer, when it's a smaller thing like an acquaintance, it's because then you're not always around them. They're not intruding on your personal, intimate life. You can see the process. You're able to say, okay, this is me. This is where I'm coming from. Boy, I have an issue. Like if I saw somebody else acting like this, I'd be like, whoa, you need to work on that, Okay, so you turn that to yourself, you do the work. And especially if it's an outside person, especially if it's like extremes, you're able to work through that, and you let it go, and you let the energy go through you or go past you or around you or whatever it does, it goes away. The shift is amazing because you can come back around that person and be totally fine. And as I'm saying this, I'm thinking about ones that I thought I had done, but I'm like, oh yeah, I would feel like that if I talked about that again. But that's how it feels. And I would imagine that's also how it feels for the bigger things too. Just takes time.
It just takes more time because generally it's gone on a long time. Yeah. So I don't know why we think one time's going to do it. On our life path, the journey that we're on is incredible, and it's holy, it's sanctified, and we have a lot of parts on it that kind of need cleaning up. Mm-hmm. It is holy ground, no matter how you look at it, and it's our path, and we need to walk it. And to do that, some of that has to be cleaned up. Some debris has to be picked up. Some weeds have to be pulled. A few flowers have to be planted. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that illustration. Or you got a yard, you're working on a yard or something, and it's, some little things might come up. You got to clean that out. I was actually, as you were saying that, I was kind of imagining drawing, not drawing calligraphy, but drawing something. I was imagining drawing calligraphy because that's my background, but drawing something like with a pencil where you have to kind of like do it lightly to try and figure out where you're going to put things. But then as you get clearer about what you want, you start to make it darker and make stronger shapes or lines or whatever. And then what happens is all that stuff that's underneath that you weren't really sure about, hopefully you can go back there and clean that up. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And then you have a polished, beautiful thing.
Yeah.
That's because you went back there and did the refining. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So something like that where we're all a work in progress.
We are. And all of our paths are different. Mm-hmm. And why we ever think we need to be the same as somebody else, or we compare our path to somebody else, is beyond me. I've done it. I've been a part of that. I'm not anymore. I don't care. I'm happy that someone else is traveling along sometimes with me. Mm-hmm. They veer off into another direction. That's okay. I'm okay with that. I didn't used to be, but I am, because my path is my path and I have to take care of it. And I need to be on it, not somebody else's. And I don't need to look anything like them.
So beautiful. Yeah. We did replay that like a million times over for all the teenagers in the world. I think I think culture, like groups, I don't know that it's group think, but it's something like that where we kind of, kids are learning to find out who they are in the comparison to other people and all of that. And really what they need to do is be worried about themselves. They still have to exist. This is the same as for adults, right? We still have to exist outside with other people. We have to be able to work with them and have good relationships. But really all that matters is this inner work.
This inner work. Yeah. Yes. Because that really is, in the language of Christianity, the kingdom of God.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, we were gonna talk a little bit more. We were about to get started on William Rand and
Yes.
his 12 heavens, but I think we should kind of stop today and then we can pick it up next time.
Let's pick it up there.
Okay, so we'll talk about that stuff next time.
Yeah, because it fits in.
All right.